that was probably the most profound in the visits to the mosques, the also the Abrahamic house. President Trump went to visit in the UAE, that beautiful church and altar that was in the middle of an Islam majority country. So definite reforms happening throughout the Middle East, and we'll see what Syria does now that the United States has taken sanctions off of that country. Will they choose the route of peace, or will they continue to go down a route of tyranny and brutal rule? But we'll see what happens here as their neighbors and friends, like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, choosing peace through strength in their own regard. And we are thrilled to see that, as President Trump knows how to get it done with all of his art of the deal and the art of the comeback in real time on a daily basis, whether it's here in the United States or abroad. We'll go to a quick commercial break, but stick with us as we await President Trump and Secretary Hegseth making a crucial announcement on our national security. Stick with us.
You've heard how hard it can be to get access to medications like ivermectin, all the things they don't want you to take because they're actually effective and they don't cost all that much, right? You've seen that one before. So it's critical to have something like that on hand for any emergency and to be prepared in a time of crisis. And that's why I want to tell you about All Family Pharmacy. They're cutting through the nonsense, and they make it easy to get hard to find medications when you need them most. They'll provide the prescription, no hoops to jump through, no waiting room, no hassle, and they deliver it right to your door. All Family Pharma even lets you order in bulk so you can stay ahead of the curve. Head over to allfamilypharmacy.com for 10% off your first order. Again, allfamilypharmacy.com. It's simple. Get the 10% savings. Be prepared.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, the 91-year-old formulator of Immuno 150, an incredible nutritional supplement. There's nothing like it. Now, Immuno 150 is different because it contains 70 plant-derived minerals and 80 other nutrients. Dr. Linus Pauling, known for vitamin C, was instrumental in convincing me to get into the mineral business in 1983. He said the world is sick due to a lack of minerals in topsoil. He said the body needs 60 minerals, but the average food and supplement has no more than 12. That's the reason for Immuno 150. Since its inception, it has had a powerful impact on the lives of thousands of people who could not get any help from various supplements they took or their doctor. Now, I suggest you try Immuno 150 and see what 70 minerals, CoQ10, and 80 nutrients can do for you. Look at the 2 videos on our website.
Expecting a DoD review of the United States military withdrawal from Afghanistan. To quote Secretary Hegseth, 3.5 years ago, the Biden administration's disastrous and embarrassing withdrawal from Afghanistan led to the deaths of 13 United States service members and 170 civilians in a suicide bombing at the Kabul International Airport's Abbey Gate. President Trump promised accountability for what transpired during that military withdrawal, and I am committed as Secretary of Defense to delivering on that promise. We have the obligation to the American people and to the war fighters who fought in Afghanistan to get the truth out, and we will. Today, I am directing the Assistant to the Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs and Senior Advisor Sean Parnell to convene a special review panel for the department into the United States military withdrawal from Afghanistan. Sean Parnell spent 485 days serving in Afghanistan. Sean was wounded in action along with 85% of his platoon and lost countless friends to the war on terror. It is fitting that he will lead an effort to re-examine previous Abbey Gate investigations conducted by U.S. Central Command during the Biden administration. In addition, Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller, a combat decorated Marine officer who spoke out about the Afghanistan withdrawal, and Jerry Dunleavy, an author, journalist, and investigator who helped lead the House Foreign Affairs Committee's investigation into the Afghanistan withdrawal, will serve on the special review panel. Sean and his team will look at the facts, examine the sources, interview witnesses, analyze the decision-making, and post-mortem the chain of events that led to the cost of America's darkest moments. Sean and his team will provide updates at the appropriate times and keep the American people informed of our findings and any directed actions resulting from our review. That's from the Pentagon, a statement by Secretary Pete Hegseth today. So much more to be investigated from the failed AutoPen administration. Get ready, folks. Get your seatbelts buckled because justice is coming. And some people deserve to be in jail for what they've done to attempt to destroy the country. As President Trump said earlier today at the Capitol, Joe Biden opened up our border and he had all this transgender nonsense within the military. Enough is enough. Thank God for those MAGA officials, subject matter experts, taking it to the fake news, taking it to the deep state globalists, and reshaping not only our federal city in the District of Columbia, but each and every community in every one of our 50 states and 6 territories. Our nation is back. It's a golden era, and it's an honor to cover it all for you here on the right side of history. We also have more video playback of yesterday, President Trump signing the Take It Down Act into law. This led by FLOTUS and the work of Senator Ted Cruz and Senator Amy Klobuchar, bipartisan legislation to protect minors and adults online from sexual exploitation and deepfake revenge porn, something that's grown in recent years with the advancements of AI and technology, and quite frankly, disgusting premeditated crime. And now the victims have an opportunity to seek legal ramifications and protections so that this doesn't happen to anyone else. So we have playback of that video for you now as we await President Trump and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth for the announcement.
You want to sign it in? Come on, sign it anyway. She deserves to sign it. Okay, there we have it. There we are. That's a big one. Today, it's my honor to officially sign the Take It Down Act into law. It's a big thing, very important, so horrible what takes place. This will be the first ever federal law to combat the distribution of explicit, imaginary, posted without subjects' consent. They take horrible pictures, and I guess sometimes even make up the pictures, and they post it without consent or anything else. And very importantly, this includes for forgeries generated by artificial intelligence known as deepfakes. We've all heard about deepfakes. I have them all the time, but nobody does anything. I asked Pam, can you help me, Pam? She says, no, I'm too busy doing other things. Don't worry, you'll survive. But a lot of people don't survive. That's true, and so horrible. With the rise of AI image generation, countless women have been harassed with deepfakes and other explicit images distributed against their will. This is the wrong, and it's just so horribly wrong. And it's a very abusive situation, like in some cases people have never seen before. And today we're making it totally illegal.
And the First Lady, of course, joining President Trump, signing that law right under his signature. So a special moment for history to see such a wonderful couple who have been through so much to defend this country over the course of the last decade. And they do it with a smile on their faces. They truly respect one another, and they are perhaps the finest first couple we have seen, especially in recent memory, with the way not only POTUS's office, but FLOTUS's offices gets down into the nitty gritty to be best, to take on these things that otherwise would not be encouraged, to go out there and make a difference in your community. It's a privilege to be able to cover it. And First Lady Melania Trump joining President Trump to sign the Take It Down Act. The First Lady joined the president in the Rose Garden just yesterday for the signing of Senate Bill 146, the Take It Down Act, a historic and bipartisan new law focused on protecting children and families from online extortion and exploitation through the non-consensual distribution of intimate images and deepfake abuse. This bill, a priority of the First Lady's office and the Be Best initiative, passed Congress in the first 100 days of the second Trump administration. And this makes a significant early legislative achievement for all Americans. First Lady Melania Trump said today that the Take It Down Act, we affirm that the well-being of our children is central to the figure of our families and of the United States of America. I am proud to say that the values of Be Best will be reflected by the law of the land. In his remarks, President Trump commended First Lady Melania Trump for her work to pass the Take It Down Act, saying, I want to thank Melania for your leadership in this very important issue. America is blessed to have such a dedicated and compassionate First Lady. The president ended his remarks by saying, working with our First Lady, we've shown that bipartisanship is still possible. In March 2025, Mrs. Trump convened a roundtable discussion of Capitol Hill, bringing together survivors of non-consensual intimate imagery, families, advocates for online protection, and members of Congress to raise awareness about this issue. The president emphasized the importance of the bill in his address to a joint session of Congress the next evening. So Mrs. Trump and the Office of the First Lady continue to engage lawmakers during key stages of the legislative process, including consideration in the House Energy and Commerce Committee and the final passage on the floor of the United States House of Representatives. Today's signing ceremony brought together survivors and families, members of Congress, cabinet officials, and advocates who contributed to the passage of this landmark legislation. So kudos to the President of the United States, those bipartisan leaders in Congress, including Senator Cruz and Senator Klobuchar, and of course, our wonderful First Lady for taking this on very strongly in a incredible bipartisan fashion, but also on the minds of many Americans. Today, what President Trump did going over to Capitol Hill to solidify and really have a unity rally for the Republican conference and 20 reasons why Congress must unite behind the one big, beautiful bill. Congressional Republicans are seeking to pass President Trump's one big, beautiful bill and take advantage of the once-in-a-generation opportunity they were given by voters. This is a mandate. And someone who's been around politics for a long time, I recommend, especially as a Republican, supporting this because you will be primaried if you do not fight for the American people. You've been given that mandate to save the middle class, and this is going to be a huge test for you. I'm talking to you, Thomas Massey of Kentucky. Better get on board or seek a primary because it will happen. This delivers the largest tax cut in American history. This means that the extra $5,000 in Americans' pockets with a double-digit decrease to their tax bills. Americans earning between $30,000 and $80,000 will pay around 15% less in taxes. It includes no tax on tips and no tax on overtime. This makes good on two of President Trump's cornerstone campaign promises and will benefit hardworking Americans where they need it the most, their paychecks. This also delivers on the big, beautiful deportations. This bill permanently secures our borders by making the largest border security investment in American history, funding at least 1 million in annual removals of illegal immigrants and wrapping up mass deportations operations to a level never before seen in American history. This finishes President Trump's border wall, and as a result, 701 miles of primary wall, 900 miles of river barriers, 629 miles of secondary barriers, and 141 miles of vehicle and pedestrian barriers that will be constructed. So this stops deadly fentanyl from flowing into the United States and our communities, securing the border from dangerous illegal immigrant murderers and rapists. It boosts the Border Patrol and ICE agents on the front lines. It empowers immigration authorities to carry out their mission by hiring 10,000 new ICE personnel, 5,000 new customs officers, and 3,000 new Border Patrol agents, and gives $10,000 in bonuses in each of the next 4 years to agents on the front lines. Who could be opposed to that? Because that must be the toughest job in the world, law enforcement in general, but especially on the southern border. It protects Medicaid for Americans by kicking 1.4 million illegals off of the benefits. The bill eliminates waste, fraud, and abuse by ending benefits for at least 1.4 million illegal aliens who are gaming the system. President Trump spoke on this earlier today while visiting Capitol Hill. It requires able-bodied Americans to work if they receive those benefits. With 4.8 million able-bodied adults choosing not to work, the One Big Beautiful Bill puts work requirements in place and supports them as they find dignity through employment. And that's something I've never understood. I've met people who don't work, and I think it's just insane because the devil loves idle hands. It's biblical to do one's due diligence and do one's work in ordinary life because it brings about not only salvation, but also helps other people. We are duty bound to be workers, and I hope you find that fulfillment on a daily basis with what you do in the world. It reverses the spending curse plaguing Washington, D.C. The legislation delivers the largest deficit reduction in nearly 30 years with $1.6 trillion in mandatory savings. It ends taxpayer-funded sex change for minors and reverses the Biden-era mandate that Medicaid covered with the so-called gender transitions and taxpayer-funded chemical castration and mutilation of American children. Maybe we'll see some people, some doctors who exploited these young children go to jail once and for all for their criminal acts. It provides historic tax relief to Social Security recipients and slashes taxes on seniors' Social Security benefits. So many big things as we break this big, beautiful bill down right here on the right side of history. Thank you to Mike Lindell and mypillow.com/RSBN for sponsoring us here at RSBN Live with 50% off the beach sale. It's about summertime, Memorial Day right around the corner, that unofficial launch of the summer season. And we sure do love it down here in the Southeast with, gosh, you could drive to the mountains, you could drive to the oceans. There's plenty of lakes and rivers as well. Always a good day to enjoy with loved ones on the beautiful waters of the United States, especially the new Gulf of America. Call today, don't delay, 800-836-7566. Support Mike Lindell and RSBN by shopping at mypillow.com/RSBN to save with code RSBN. Easy to remember. And as President Trump put it the other week in Warren, Michigan, Mike Lindell is the master marketer, perhaps the best in America. So thank you to Mike Lindell for sponsoring the right side of history. It's a nice beach set there. I think I might grab one myself. So you know how I am. I like to support our sponsors here on the right side of history. Thank you to mypillow.com/RSBN, as this big, beautiful bill is a win-win-win for the American people, as House leadership and Senate leadership, in conjunction with the President of the United States, continues to fight for much needed tax reform. This bill will give Americans permanent tax relief through the Trump tax cuts. If the bill does not pass, Americans will see the largest tax increase in American history. It finally modernizes air traffic control, fulfilling President Trump's plan to completely overhaul the systems that keep Americans flying safely and efficiently. This will allow President Trump to update our air traffic control systems and act where the Biden administration failed, despite all of the warnings, especially from the DEI hire himself, Pete Buttigieg. I hope that loser stays out of government. And he wants to be president of the United States. Can you believe that? He couldn't even be mayor of South Bend, Indiana, let alone run our transportation in the United States. It ends the taxpayer-funded Green New Scam. The legislation repeals or phases out every green corporate welfare subsidy in Democrats' so-called Inflation Reduction Act. Immediately stops credits from flowing to China and saves taxpayers $500 billion a year on average, reversing electric vehicle mandates that let radical climate activists set the standards for American energy. And how curious has it been how conservatives are defending Tesla because they believe in freedom of choice, freedom of speech, as Elon Musk does. And now the green crazies out there will go and kick a Tesla or two because they don't believe in private property. That's what it really boils down to. And I've seen it on the campaign trail myself. Gosh, I mean, even running for office, sometimes people kicking down signs or taking them out of people's yards. I would never do that, even if I disagreed with why it was up in the first place. I believe too much in the First Amendment. And that's great to have constitutional governance brought back to the United States of America instead of this post-constitutional globalist agenda that the Autopen tried to usher in with his cronies. This incentivizes this bill made in America. It rewards companies that build their products in the United States with lower taxes and allows Americans to buy an American-made vehicle to fully deduct their auto loan interest. So talk about a great incentive and something where private and public entities can come together in order to benefit you, the American consumer. It's pro-family. The one big, beautiful bill increases the child tax credit, establishes MAGA accounts, and for newborns starts saving and strengthening paid family leave. And remember that guy who was doing all that far left stuff during the Obama administration? He talked about this, the fact that Republicans stole Democrat playbooks going back to the first Trump administration with paid family leave, with the work that Ivanka Trump did on this. I can remember visiting the White House. She was actually sitting with Lisa Murkowski at the time, who has been a huge critic of President Trump. But even then, they could find common ground to make sure something like this is pro-family for the American worker, for the American family. We are actually decreasing in birth rates in this country with an average of 1.62 children per family. Really, to sustain the largeness of this country and to fulfill all industries, especially this emerging AI industry and technologies, we need people to be having at least 2.1 or above on average of children. So hopefully something like this can keep these pro-family initiatives going, because I've talked to Paul Stone about it, who runs the Colonial Metals Group, about how we need these great policies to come about to be pro-family so that people will do just that, have families, buy homes, and live that elusive American dream. This repeals Democrats' insane attack on the gig economy. It repeals the requirement that Venmo, PayPal, and other gig transactions over $600 to be reported to the IRS. Enough with Big Brother. It is B to the S every single day. It's none of their business where you put your money. And this ensures that that's protected, especially on low-level transactions. It protects family farmers. The bill prevents the greedy death tax from hitting 2 million family-owned farms in the United States who would otherwise see their exemptions cut in half and cut taxes on farmers by over $10 billion. It's once-in-a-generation chance to revolutionize our nation's defense capabilities and protect the homeland against new threats. It funds President Trump's Golden Dome, invests in American shipbuilding, and modernizes our military. This unleashes American energy dominance. The legislation increases onshore and offshore oil and gas leases, which provide certainty for energy producers, spurs job growth, and makes energy more affordable for the American consumer. And finally, and not that it's the least important, but number 20 on this great list of the big, beautiful bill, it boosts American mineral development. Crucial for the United States. This bill increases mining of domestic minerals and makes America less dependent on foreign adversaries for critical minerals. So much of what President Trump has done in 100 plus days with his incredible cabinet is get rid of the dependence on the Chinese Communist Party, who mine the floor of our beautiful Pacific Ocean in order to create these batteries for green new scams that cannot be recycled or take forever to be recycled, or are used with lithium. So if, God forbid, they catch fire, can burn, and are hard to put out. But instead, we have minerals in things like this that you carry around, your cell phone, and other computer materials and things we use on a daily basis. So part of the deals with the Ukraine that President Trump brokered in its totality and finality, going back to Pope Francis's funeral at the Vatican, if you remember the Catholic Church being great hosts, bringing those two chairs together for President Trump and President Zelensky of the Ukraine to just hammer it out and get that done, in turn ending this awful war that took place by Vladimir Putin's invasion of the Ukraine. But those minerals coming to the United States because it's owed for the 360 billion plus that was sent over by the United States to the Ukraine. And this is even, I'll criticize Republicans about this too. Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, do you remember him wearing just the Ukrainian pin right here? How ridiculous was that? No person elected into office in the United States should expel a United States pin for the flag of another country or their insignia It's like, who do you work for? Who elected you in the first place? And I like Kevin. He's a good man. He's a smart, sharp cookie. But we've had a much better replacement in House Speaker Mike Johnson, who has the full faith, support, and commitment coming from the White House. And President Trump saying, I don't think anyone else could do the job better. Louisiana loves him. The United States loves him. The House of Representatives loves him. It's Mike Johnson, a great man of God, a great leader, who was selected for such a time as this. Someone I think who never necessarily wanted to ascend to the House Speaker role, but God had other plans, and he is doing a phenomenal job with that. Also with the Saudi Arabian agreement, with our military and AI and technological agreements bringing $600 billion into the United States and countless thousands of jobs in those new arenas of technology, AI, military, industrial, and manufacturing. This is also included great minerals coming from the Middle East to the United States. So this is a huge part of the one big, beautiful bill. And Secretary Duffy from Transportation also stating how important it was to get this done, this new air traffic control agenda to save traveling in the United States, something that was ignored by the past administration, things that have been outdated for countless years, in some cases going back 25 years. And all I could say is, as you look at this in a fair way, not even on an ideological basis, why did Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Hussein Obama, and the auto pen allow things to get so bad with $36 trillion in debt, with kicking the can down the road, with being obligated to, I guess, give their oligarchs all the attention they needed, those people that donated vast amounts of money to get them into office. Maybe that's who they were focused on serving, but President Trump focused on serving you. And that's why I like to remind my friends on the left side of history, President Trump takes $1 every quarter. He legally takes that $1, and he joked around that if he did not, maybe Congress would investigate him for that, just as they did with the fake impeachments. But he takes that $1, donates everything else to those who are in need, and saved a huge section of hallowed ground at the Gettysburg Memorial for you, the American people, for those souls who fought so valiantly on both sides, Americans who perished. And if you are a fan of that great movie, Remember the Titans, from roughly 25 years ago, when you ever feel divided with your brother, when you ever feel divided with a teammate, remember a situation like that. And Coach Boone, played by Denzel Washington, they went on that jog. It was actually filmed at Gettysburg College. And I remember the assistant coach saying, this is not the Marine Corps, coach, it's a high school football team. But he was instilling discipline. He was instilling that reality, to not turn in malice toward one another, but rather to work together, to dialogue and discuss these issues. And as Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Secretary Pete Hegseth, who you'll see momentarily as we near the 4 o'clock hour on the East Coast in Washington, D.C., this president is all about dialogue. He's all about peace through strength. And even that goofball, Bill Maher, who is very funny and has a great show in and of itself, but has always been on the left side of history, said, take it for what it's worth. But President Trump actually cares about what you have to think about, what you have to say, and is willing to dine over these differences and will ask you point blank, what do you think about that? Kind of cool to have a commander-in-chief who cares so deeply about what you think on each and every issue. As we approach the 4 o'clock hour on the East Coast, it's 1 o'clock on the West Coast, and it's a beautiful 3 o'clock here in Auburn, Alabama, the loveliest village on the plains, home of the Auburn Tigers and the right side of history, RSBN Live. I'm Robert McNeely. If you're just joining us, we're awaiting President Trump and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth to make a major announcement on national security. And the Secretary actually stating earlier today from the Pentagon, a DoD review on the United States military withdrawal from Afghanistan. According to Secretary Hegseth, 3.5 years ago, the Biden administration's disastrous and embarrassing withdrawal from Afghanistan led to the deaths of 13 U.S. service members and 100 civilians in a suicide bombing of the Kabul International Airport's Abbey Gate. And we remember how terrible that day was. So many young people losing their lives, many of them in their 20s, as we're getting a live look now from just outside the Oval Office and off of the Rose Garden, where you saw the signing of the historic Take It Down Act just yesterday. President Trump promised accountability for what transpired during the military withdrawal, and I am committed to delivering on that promise. We have an obligation to the American people and to the war fighters who fought in Afghanistan to get the truth, and we will, according to Secretary Hegseth. Today, I am directing the Assistant of the Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs, Sean Parnell, to convene a special review panel for the department into the United States military withdrawal from Afghanistan. Sean Parnell spent 485 days serving in Afghanistan. You may remember him. You may remember his very handsome face. He's been on this show countless times, especially during the campaign, with yours truly and my wonderful colleague, Matthew Alvarez, committed to getting all of that military commentary out to you and how they truly felt about the last 4 years under Autopen. But Sean was wounded in action along with 85% of his platoon and lost countless friends to the war on terror. It is fitting that he will lead the effort to re-examine previous Abbey investigations conducted by U.S. Central Command during the Autopen administration. In addition, Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller, a combat decorated Marine officer who spoke out about the Afghanistan withdrawal, and Jerry Dunleavy, an author, journalist, and investigator who helped lead the House Foreign Affairs Committee into the special review panel, will take the lead on this. Sean and his team will look at the facts, examine sources, interview witnesses, analyze the decision-making process, and the postmortem, the chains of events that led to one of America's darkest moments. Sean and his team will provide updates at appropriate times to keep the American people informed of the findings and any directed actions resulting for the review there. And now there's a live look of the Oval Office. President Trump's Secretary Hegseth, as we come together, we'll toss that there now live for you to see this very important announcement.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being here in the Oval Office, one of the great places of the world, as we make a historic announcement about the Golden Dome Missile Defense Shield. That's something we want, and Ronald Reagan wanted it many years ago, but they didn't have the technology. But it's something we're going to have. We're going to have it at the highest level. I want to thank Secretary Hegseth, who's been fantastic, and Secretary Rubio, and Space Force Vice Chief of Space Operations, General Mike Gutlein. I also want to recognize Senators Dan Sullivan, Kevin Cramer, and Jim Banks, fantastic senators, great talents, great political talents, and people that love our country. In the campaign, I promised the American people that I would build a cutting-edge missile defense shield to protect our homeland from the threat of foreign missile attack. And that's what we're doing. Today, I'm pleased to announce that we have officially selected an architecture for this state-of-the-art system that will deploy next-generation technologies across the land, sea, and space, including space-based sensors and interceptors. And Canada has called us, and they want to be a part of it. So we'll be talking to them. They want to have protection also. So as usual, we help Canada do the best we can. This design for the Golden Dome will integrate with our existing defense capabilities and should be fully operational before the end of my term. So we'll have it done in about 3 years. Once fully constructed, the Golden Dome will be capable of intercepting missiles, even if they are launched from other sides of the world and even if they are launched from space. And we will have the best system ever built. As you know, we helped Israel with theirs, and it was very successful. And now we have technology that's even far advanced from that, but including hypersonic missiles, ballistic missiles, and advanced cruise missiles. All of them will be knocked out of the air. We will truly be completing the job that President Reagan started 40 years ago, forever ending the missile threat to the American homeland. And the success rate is very close to 100%, which is incredible when you think of it. You're shooting bullets out of the air. I'm also pleased to report that the one big, beautiful bill will include $25 billion for the Golden Dome to help construction get underway. That's the initial sort of a down deposit. And we have probably, you're talking about, General, we're talking about $175 billion total cost of this when it's completed. This afternoon, I'm also announcing that I will appoint, very importantly, General Gutlein to lead the ambitious new effort as the direct reporting program manager for the Golden Dome. Very talented man, and I'm very honored to have been the one that helped or really created Space Force. Space Force has turned out to be a tremendous success. We were third in space, and now we're number one in space by a lot. It's not even close. And Mike is a four-star Space Force general, the recipient of the Defense Distinguished Service Medal, one of the most respected people in the world having to do with defense. You know, we have offense and we have defense. I'll bet he's good at offense too. And he has an unmatched background in missile warning technology and defense procurement. General Gutlein also knows that we need to move fast. No one is more qualified for his job. And everybody, this was a universal acceptance of General Gutlein. Everybody that knows him and knows everybody else, they said there's only one man for the job. So I have a feeling we have the right guy. But now I'd like to invite Secretary Hegseth and the General to please say a few words and describe the system a little bit. And we appreciate you being here. And the press has really been very fair over the last period of a couple of months. I don't know what happened to you. It was so much more exciting the other way. But you've been very, very fair. We have very high poll numbers, the highest we've ever had. And I think we're doing a great job. We had a tremendous trip to the Middle East, as you know. It was a really amazing trip. And now I came home, and this is the one I was really looking forward to this day, because this is very important for the success and even survival of our country. It's a pretty evil world out there. So this is something that goes a long way toward the survival of this great country. And as I said, we'll be discussing Canada. They want to hook in and they want to see if they can be a part of it. That sort of makes sense. I guess that's what I was talking about from day one. You know, it just automatically makes sense, and it won't be very difficult to do, but they'll pay their fair share. Thank you very much, everybody. And Pete, go ahead.
Sure. Well, Mr. President, add this to the long and growing list of promises made and promises kept. Ultimately, this right here, the Golden Dome for America, is game changer. It's a generational investment in the security of America and Americans. Mr. President, you said we're going to secure our southern border and get 100% operational control after the previous administration allowed an invasion of people into our country. President Reagan 40 years ago cast the vision for it. The technology wasn't there. Now it is, and you're following through to say we will protect the homeland from cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, hypersonic missiles, drones, whether they're conventional or nuclear. It's not lost on me, sir, also that you had the vision to start the Space Force. And here we are when the others said we didn't need it, here we are in the Oval Office with one of the leaders of the Space Force in General Gutlein, leading the charge on putting in place a game-changing Golden Dome for America. So, sir, it's an honor to be a part of this bold initiative. We're going to get to work on it. We have been since you signed that executive order on January 27th. We've been fast forward on this. We're here on this day, and this is just one stop in delivering this defense of the homeland, which is something you've charged us with doing, and we'll keep going until it is complete, sir.
Thank you, Pete. Pete's doing a great job, by the way. Thank you very much. General, please.
Mr. President, today is a great day for the nation as we double down on protection of the homeland. As you're aware, our adversaries have become very capable and very intent on holding the homeland at risk. While we have been focused on keeping the peace overseas, our adversaries have been quickly modernizing their nuclear forces, building out ballistic missiles capable of hosting multiple warheads, building out hypersonic missiles capable of attacking the United States within an hour and traveling at 6,000 miles an hour, building cruise missiles that can navigate around our radar and our defenses, building submarines that can sneak up on our shores, and worse yet, building space weapons. It is time that we change that equation and start doubling down on the protection of the homeland. Golden Dome is a bold and aggressive approach to hurry up and protect the homeland from our adversaries. We owe it to our children and our children's children to protect them and afford them a quality of life that we have all grown up enjoying. Golden Dome will afford that. I greatly appreciate your trust in me and your nomination in me and your trust in the team to deliver this. It is a great day for America.
And also, very importantly, it's we're the only ones that have this. We call it super technology. Nobody else has it, and nobody else has really near what we have. So this is a very exciting project. This is something that will, when the general said close to 100% protection. So that's something we need. I think it's a very, and everything's going to be made in the USA, by the way, very importantly. So it's something that I've been looking forward to for a long time. And I just noticed you two, Jim, you're standing there, and behind you is a very important document, Declaration of Independence. And that was in the vault for many decades right under this area. They have vaults with pictures on top. You have Abraham Lincoln. You see, that was the original Abraham Lincoln, the original Washington. And does everybody know who the middle was? General Grant. And so it's very exciting. You look over here, and above Ronald Reagan, you have Thomas Jefferson. That's Monroe from the Monroe document. And you know who that is, right? Andrew Jackson. So we have a lot of very exciting pictures. And on the other side, likewise, some great presidents and great people on many of these, because people were asking about them. Many of them, almost all of them, were in the vaults or nearby, but generally in the vaults downstairs. Well, we have some great, so it's very exciting. And the place has become a little different than you first saw it, Jim, right?
Yes, much
It's a
better.
little bit different, slightly better. But to think we had them, and some were in the vaults for over 100 years. So it's pretty cool stuff. Everybody knows Jim Banks. He's a great congressman, and now he's a great senator from Indiana. And you might want to say a few words, Jim.
Well, your legacy with Space Force, Mr. President, is already big, but the Golden Dome is going to be an even bigger legacy for our country. And Indiana is going to help you make it.
Right.
The space satellites that are made in Fort Wayne, Indiana by L3 Harris, all the work done at Crane Navy Base in Southern Indiana is going to be a big part of it. And Hoosiers are very proud of that. We're proud of you. Thank you very much.
You're going to be a big factor. Thank you, and good luck, and congratulations. You won that race by a lot.
Thanks to you.
That wasn't even a contest, right?
Well, thank you. Thanks to you and all of your support.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Please go ahead. You missed that. This is Senator Kramer. He's one of our best. Can't get any better. Go ahead.
Well, you're very nice, Mr. President, and thanks for this. And I remember the day in your first term when you called, and I was a brand new baby freshman senator on the Armed Services Committee, and you said, I want to have a Space Force. Would you lead the effort on the Senate Armed Services Committee? And I felt so proud thinking that you chose me, only to find out later no one else would do it. But nonetheless, it worked out really, really, really well because North Dakota has some great space assets, and that contributed to that and to Golden Dome. No surprise that you would be the president that would come along and put the homeland first. And this is just one more example of that. So thanks for this and for allowing me this afternoon. And by the way, let me just add my strong endorsement of General Goodline's role in leading this. I don't know anybody better equipped to do it than he is.
Everybody said that.
Yeah,
That's
for
great.
sure.
Dan Sullivan, Alaska Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for your continued leadership on missile defense. We were talking earlier how in 2019 at the Pentagon, you laid out a speech about the Missile Defense Review that had all these principles on missile defense you articulated then during your first term. And now the Golden Dome is all of that. So you're continuing to lead. We really appreciate it. The Congress is stepping up, as you mentioned right now in the budget reconciliation bill, $25 billion for the Golden Dome. And what Senator Kramer and Senator Banks and I and many others, we're working on and I briefed you on this before, sir, on our Golden Dome Act, which we think will have, in terms of legislation that can help cement what you're doing right here, getting the Congress behind it, not just with the funding, but with authorizations. So we're working closely with Secretary Hegseth, General Gutlein, the whole team. So we're very honored to be here, sir. And, Alaska is the cornerstone of missile defense right now in terms of ground-based missile interceptors, in terms of radar systems that track incoming missiles. So my state is honored to continue to play a critical role in all of this and build on it. And we're really excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. Great. Any questions?
Mr. President, you had mentioned at the beginning of your remarks that this was a campaign promise of yours. Have military commanders asked for this system specifically? Because NORAD had said previously that the current system was adequate. So what does this get the United States that
Somebody said the
isn't
current
already
system is
in
adequate.
reform?
There really is no current system. We have certain areas of missiles and certain missile defense, but there's no system. We just have some very capable weapons that hopefully we never have to use, but we have some very capable weapons. Now, this is a different league. There's never been anything like this. This is something that's going to be very protective. I think you can rest assured there'll be nothing like this. Nobody else is capable of building it either.
Was
Yeah,
it something
please
that
go ahead.
military commanders asked you for? Did they ask you to do this?
Well, let me put it differently. I suggested it and they all said, we love the idea, sir. It's the way it's got to be, right? But they want it and they wanted it badly once it was suggested. I don't know if they ever thought they would be lucky enough to have it, but we were able to get it done and we have all the funding. It's all pretty much tucked away. I think most people feel it's very important to have. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. When you first announced this idea, critics said it would be prohibitively expensive, potentially ineffective, and could trigger an arms race in space. What do you say to those critics about that?
Well, they're wrong. It's about as close to perfect as you can have in terms of real production. I told you Canada wants to be a part of it, which be, fairly small expansion. But we'll work with them on pricing. We'll be dealing with them on pricing. They know about it very much. They've asked to be a part of it, actually. They've asked us to be a part of it. I think it's something that is great. If you can afford to do it, we can afford to do it. We took in $5.1 trillion in the last 4 days in the Middle East. And when you think about it, this is a tiny fraction of that. But we make it all here. We're going to make it all here. We have, when I will tell you, an adversary told me, a very big adversary told me the most brilliant people in the world are Silicon Valley. He said, we cannot duplicate him. We can't. This was somebody that I won't tell you who it is, but you'd be amazed. We have the most brilliant minds in the world doing this kind of thing, the equipment, the space, the computers, everything. But I said that we just can't duplicate what you have there in Silicon Valley. We never have been able to. And there's a very strong group of people and very strong minds, but they can't. So we have things that nobody else can have. You see what we've done helping Israel with that. You probably wouldn't have in Israel. They launched probably 500 missiles altogether. And I think 1/2 of a missile got through. And that was only falling to the ground as scrap metal. It's pretty amazing. And this is in terms of technology, far advanced from that system.
And just one follow-up on the adversaries. Have you addressed Russia's ventures in space with a space-based nuclear weapon and told Putin to stop in your conversations with him?
We haven't discussed it, but at the right time we will, yeah.
Mr. President, with the goal of keeping Americans safe with this, can you talk about the timeline? How long will this take to complete?
We think it's going to be about a little bit less than 3 years. And we'll have a big phase in very early. We're starting immediately with $25 billion. It'll cost about $175 billion completed, but we think in 2.5 to 3 years.
Are you confident that you can get the funding needed from Congress quickly?
It's amazing how easy this one is to fund. Some funding is tough and some is easy. When we say we're going to save everyone's lives in a crazy world, it seems to be very easy to get. Yeah, we've already spoken to everybody that we have to speak to. Everybody's in. I would say, Dan, everybody's in line here. Right?
Yes, sir. $25 billion is a down payment in the budget reconciliation bill right now.
Yeah. So I think
Mr. President, on Russia,
people actually love it.
Mr. President, on Russia, are you worried about the reports on a military buildup along the borders towards Finland and Norway?
No, I don't worry about that at all. They're going to be very safe. Those are two countries that are going to be very safe.
And secondly, sir, if I may, Volodymyr Zelensky is saying today that he's hoping for you to impose new sanctions on Russia. Are you considering that?
Well, that's going to be my determination. That's going to be nobody else's determination. We'll see how Russia behaves. We see what's going to happen. We have a pretty critical time right now. I had a talk yesterday for 2.5 hours with President Putin, as you know. I also spoke to all of the European, or to many of them, leaders, but they were representing the whole. And I think we had very good conversations yesterday. Please.
Thanks, Mr. President. What companies have asked to be involved in building this system, and have you decided on who will be building it?
Yeah, I think I'll let you answer that. You can mention some of your yours from Alaska is involved, and Alaska is a big part of it because locationally they're sort of perfect. I think that's your first line of defense in certain instances. And Kevin will tell you that his state's involved. But honestly, Georgia's going to be very big. Florida is going to be very big. They're all going to be very big. Jim, do you want to talk about Indiana?
Yeah, in Fort Wayne, Indiana, where I live, we make all the space satellites at L3 Harris. Across the board, we're the top manufacturing state in the country. By the way, the tariffs have been very good for auto manufacturing in Indiana.
So good.
But this is going to be really good for the defense industry in my state. There's so much money involved here. There are going to be a lot of American companies involved in making the Golden Dome.
You might also say, you're talking about the tariffs. He has some of the biggest auto plants in the world moving into Indiana only for one reason, maybe two reasons, November 5th and the tariffs, okay?
Yes, sir.
But the tariffs have driven tremendous business into this country. But you have one of the biggest in the world being built.
The Honda Civics,
Right.
the new Honda Civic made in Indiana. GM has added jobs. Eli Lilly moving pharmaceutical manufacturing from China to the United States, $27 billion. You go on and on with good news in Indiana and across the country because of the tariffs.
Our country was cold as ice a year ago, and now we have the hottest country in the world. This is the hottest country in the world. Nobody even close. If you look at even this last trip that I made, the respect that is paid to our country. We went from being laughed at all over the world, and now we're the hottest country in the world by far. Dan, go ahead, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I think when you look at the system that you've laid out, it's an idea in your executive order of a layered defense. So you have initial ground-based missile interceptors, which are made by some of the big defense companies, Lockheed, Martin, Raytheon. But the beauty of your vision, Mr. President, is that it's layered, it's open architecture, and it goes up into space. So this is going to be some of the new defense tech companies that are very interested in it and can bring missile defense at a cost that I don't think, you said it, Mr. President, is unimaginable in terms of how much lower the cost is. So it's all across the board in terms of companies. Senator Kramer and I just met with a bunch from last week that are interested in this. And you said it earlier, Mr. President, our technology sector is head and shoulders above any other place in the world. And they're going to be a key part of this. And I think that's why it makes it so exciting.
Mr. President, I think one of the things and you alluded to this, the new autonomous space age defense ecosystem is more about Silicon Valley than it is about big metal, right? And so what's exciting about this is it makes it available to everybody to participate, to compete, big companies, mid-sized companies, small companies, but General Gutlein is the perfect person, again, to sort all that out because he understands how it has to work together ultimately.
And Pete, maybe we'll close with you. We've been discussing this for a long time. Peter and I used to discuss it when I was going to go on a show that he did very well and had tremendous ratings, but all he wanted to talk about was the military. He didn't want to talk about anything else. We used to talk about this. How about you closing it out?
Yes, sir. I mean, like I said, without your vision, willing to say and do things when other people wanted to look away and pretend like the threat didn't exist, or be focused on foreign adventurism, some other threat that we've been told is affecting us. When you looked at the data, sir, from Russia to the communist Chinese and their capabilities, what they're trying to do to supersede us and threaten us, how do we find the best innovators, the best military leaders, the best companies, tech companies? You mentioned open architecture. That's exactly right. So multiple companies can pour into this, sir. It's a layered defense. So if you miss at one, you catch at the next. And it integrates existing technologies that can speak to each other. So it moves quickly while also investing in further ranging space-based interceptors. So our enemies, our adversaries are going to pay a lot of attention to this, just like they have to President Trump from day one. So you're defending the homeland, defending the American people. It's going to benefit my kids and grandkids, all of ours in this room. So thank you for your leadership. And we're going to charge ahead as fast as we can.
Very good. Great job, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Press.
No cuts. No cuts to Medicaid. No cuts to Medicaid. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
And President Trump announcing, along with Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and Senators Banks, Kramer, and Sullivan, It's a major announcement for the Golden Dome. This was a vision of President Ronald Reagan's roughly 40 years ago, but now the technology exists for it. And thank God, President Trump in office, in conjunction with our outstanding military, a golden era for a Golden Dome. And I love each and every day looking into that Oval Office with new accessories. I think Benjamin Franklin's bust now one of the newer ones right next to the Resolute desk. Thank you to our sponsors on the right side of history, Colonial Metals Group. Paul Stone, the CEO, would like you to scan that QR code now. Shield your savings today, because if you go to freegoldguy.com/RSBN, it details with no obligation just how gold and silver can become part of your portfolio, whether it's properties, assets, a 401k, or IRA.